This is Counsel Cast, and I'm your host, Karin Conroy, your marketing co-counsel. In every episode, I discuss marketing topics with experts who answer your questions and help your law firm achieve next-level results. Here's today's guest.
Welcome, everybody. This is Dennis Meador, the CEO of the Legal Podcast Network. I like to call myself an accidental marketer. Actually went to school for theology in an unaccredited school in the middle of nowhere and kind of got into selling marketing at about 18, 19 years old, and then got into the entrepreneurship side of it in my early 20s and kind of took to it like a fish to water. And here I am today, 20 years after starting to work with attorneys, talking to Karin about how I can help them some more or how they can help themselves through what we do.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Dennis. I find that fascinating, especially the theology piece, because I feel like we're going to talk about a lot of theory and kind of the philosophy of some of these marketing approaches and why you and I think certain approaches are better than others. So I feel like all of these little parts of our lives they all fit in somewhere and we're going to make it work.
Absolutely.
So the title for today's show is Why Some Lawyers Dominate Podcasting While Others Struggle. And I feel like this is a common theme in most marketing approaches where there's some FOMO or the grass is greener. They see some friend down the road doing a thing, whatever it is, podcasting, they're on TikTok, they're doing, some kind of new marketing thing. And the first approach is, I need to start that before they think anything. They kind of jump in with 2 feet and they don't have any strategy. They don't have any plan, but they're like, Bob is killing it on podcasting. So I'm going to do a podcast. So let's first start with why that is not the right approach, or maybe a more positive way of spinning it would be, what would be the first step that you would recommend a person takes if they see this whole podcasting thing and think, maybe.
Well, I think the first thing they need to ask themselves is, why are they podcasting? Because there's really 2 approaches as an attorney to podcasting. One is for recognition among their peers. It's just like the magazine articles and the Attorney at Law magazine. For them, it's about, well, I want to, be recognized and seen. And if that's what they're trying to do, that is one completely different approach than somebody who says, I want a podcast because I see that it can help build my practice, bring in people that fit my ideal client profile. So I think first and foremost, they need to determine what is the purpose behind their podcast. And it can't be both.
Right.
I want to do both of them. No, that's not the way that it works. It's like saying, there's only one Deion Sanders from back in the day playing football and baseball, right? And yet every attorney thinks, well, I could just do it all. I have no time to do any of it. But I could do it all. And so I would say that's step number 1. What is the purpose behind your podcast? Is it because you want to gain clients or because you want to gain recognition among your peers?
Yes. Pick your path. Do not think like I'm picturing like a parallel freeway, 2 parallel freeways, and like a person trying to sort of walk down both freeways at the same time with like super long legs, like a cartoon character, and how cartoonish that sounds. Like, let's not do that, So pick your path. Is this thought leadership, which as much as I can't stand that phrase, I use it all the time. Are you doing like the thought leadership, building reputation approach? Or are you trying to get leads? Like, that's a pretty easy question. So let's start with that. So then let's kind of go how each of those would look different in step 2.
So step 2, I always believe marketing works backwards from your target. Most people try to work inwards and out, and they're like, I am this and I do this. Really what they need to be doing is looking at who their ideal client profile is, looking at who their ideal follower is that would listen to their podcast, and then build backwards from there, build the branding from there, build the subject matter from there, build the audience from there. And so that is definitely step number 2 is, number 1, pick your path, but number 2, pick the destination of the path and then work your map backwards.
Right. Exactly. So, for example, my path is my audience is lawyers, obviously, and I'm on the lead generation path here with this podcast. And so I build it backwards, knowing what kinds of questions and problems and issues lawyers have with marketing. And so I find guests like you who are going to come on and answer those questions. I mean, it seems very obvious when you look at an example like this, but so many people get this wrong. What kind of mistakes do you see? Do you sometimes take clients on who already have a podcast and you kind of take it over and fix it?
Mostly our clients have had a podcast and quit. And then they come to us a year later or 6 months later and say, hey, I had one, but it was
Yes.
just too much work. There's just too
Yeah.
much involved in it. Then we kind of describe how we help them with that.
And do it better. Okay, so what kind of mistakes or issues did they have in the first go around?
I think a couple of things. One is attorneys are intelligent people, just
Yeah.
stereotypically. I mean, we all know outliers in every single thing, but stereotypically, they're intelligent people.
Right.
And one of the things, and I like to put myself in that category of halfway decent, smart people, is we tend to think, I could do it all myself.
Yes.
So, they'll get in and they'll create their show, and then I had to learn Adobe this, and I had to learn this program, and I had to do that. And it's like, really? Like, I'll tell people in the beginning, like, I'll say, listen, it's 2025. Any 8-year-old can have a podcast.
Yeah.
Stick an iPhone, point it to you for 15 minutes, talk, put it into a cheap, Apple program, cut it up a little bit and throw it out there. But what makes the difference, like with us, we have about 30 people on our team. Only 3 of them are on the sales side. So we're not a sales organization. We're a production company.
Right.
And we have people that, for example, our director of content, she has been interviewing attorneys for over 10 years, interviewed thousands of them for content purposes.
Nice.
So she knows how to create what we call our content path to reach clients. So that's one thing they don't do. They just kind of haphazardly like, what am I going to talk about? And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes they make as well. Thinking of something doesn't make it done.
Right.
And it's like they don't sit down and they go, okay, so what am I going to talk about? What's my content path? Who's my client? Okay, what are my subjects going to be for the next 3 months, the next 6 months?
Right.
And then they're just like, oh, I got to shoot a podcast today. Oh, you know what? We'll just skip it. And then they have a podcast this month, and then 3 months later they have another podcast. And that's the biggest mistake that they make, is they just don't understand like all that it really takes to put themselves at a level of presenting themselves professionally through any sort of medium. They think, well, that kid makes $30 million a year on YouTube, opening presents. So if I talk about how brilliant I am, this should just be a home run. And it's like, no, there's a lot more to it than that.
Right. I love this idea of the content plan because, once again, we're coming back to a plan. Like, step 1 was have a plan, know why you're doing it, pick that path, and then figure out how to kind of work backwards from that goal. But once again, the goal is a plan. We have a very involved content calendar. I mean, we're a marketing agency. And so we have content going out onto a lot of different platforms. But a lot of it comes back where the source is this original content we're creating on this podcast. And then we go out from there. We also do create a lot of original blog content. It's always working together. So for this week, we're going to be talking about podcasting, obviously. So we're going to be writing a corresponding blog post that's not exactly the same, but in the same world. It's talking something about podcasting and how you can use that, but not saying obviously the same thing we're saying today, you and I, on this podcast, because that would be redundant and nobody wants to read that. So we have a very involved process, and I'm not going to get into what our process looks like, but this is one of the mantras that I'm saying this year over and over. If you are not thinking about your marketing in terms of this a year, not today, not this week, not even this month, like I am now scheduling podcast episodes that are almost 6 months out. And if you are not thinking about your entire marketing plan in terms of a year, like what your goals are, how you're going to get there, you're not really doing it right. Like it really needs some future thinking. And once you start building it out this way, it's really not that hard, but it's getting up to speed. So can you tell me a little bit about what that looks like in your process? And the person you were talking about a minute ago, that's the equivalent of our content strategist, but how does that work when they're kind of planning out either episodes or the path or the plan with your clients?
Well, we build everything from the ICP or the case type backwards.
Okay.
And so
What's an ICP?
Ideal client profile.
Oh, got you.
Or insane is who it is.
I don't know what we're talking about anymore.
Yeah, sorry. Ideal client profile. So we build it backwards from that. But the good thing is, so we use question-based search. And our podcasts, they're not like I don't want to say rambling, but they're not, sort of just like feeling out conversation type stuff. It's very much thought leadership, authoritative positioning.
Yeah.
We actually provide them with the questions at least a week ahead of time. We normally shoot each show takes about 30 minutes to shoot. It's really about a 17 to 21 minute episode. They answer about 7 to 10 questions. And our host just gets on and is like, oh, hey, good to have you. Now, today we're talking about this subject. And, attorney so-and-so, tell me a little bit about this. And we just get right in. And it's just boom, 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 boom. Question, answer, question, answer, question, answer.
Nice.
Thanks for coming on. Well, what that allows us to do then is like what you talked about, building a content stack off of it.
Right.
So one episode for us then becomes 10 shorts, 10 audiograms, and 2 to 3 pages of website content FAQ.
Yep.
So in 20 minutes of their time, we could build a month's worth of content just from what I always say is harnessing the power of their own innate ability, which is to talk. That's all we're doing is just having them talk about things they always talk about anyway.
Right.
And so when we kind of build that out, then we look at that and we're like, okay, well, let's say we have a client and they're a divorce lawyer. And then we say to them, okay, you're a divorce lawyer, but tell me, who are your clients? Like, would you want more high asset divorces? Do you really like working with custody issues? Like, who are your clients? Oh, well, I want, 40 to 50-year-old men who are going through bad custody. They're business owners or high net worth individuals. That's my client. Okay. Yeah. Then we build the content sessions based off of the types of things that person would come up against.
Yes.
And so then each show does that, and then we can take that and we build the YouTube channel, and then we build the shorts in, and then so now we're helping with SEO. We're helping with, we're putting the 2 to 3 pages of FAQ content where we took and repurposed and rewrote the site or rewrote the podcast content. We're like, listen, we are agnostic as far as outlets. So if you want to be on Blue Sky, Pinterest, like all we have to do is plug it into a system. So it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. It's not a ton more work for us.
Right.
And the people will be like, well, I'm not on Blue Sky. And I'm like,
fine.
Why does that matter? It's like, what if your client is?
We're not asking you to go on there and make political statements. We're just asking to get another backlink. Like, think about this in terms of SEO and just pulling in a net of traffic.
And then I like to talk about this concept that I teach to my team as well, is the concept of what I call digital languages.
Okay.
So like, if you think about like European, like I lived in Eastern Europe when I was in my early 20s. Most people in other countries speak conservatively 2 to 3 languages. Even here on this little island where I live, they all speak English, Spanish, and Creole. Yeah. And so they're exposed to other languages, things like that. In the US, we kind of have this mind frame, well, they must not be intelligent if they don't speak English.
Yes.
And we allow that to transfer over. But what ends up happening is it's like, wait a minute. And you think about just different people in your own life. Like you have one person where you're like, if you text them, you'll never hear from them. But if you hit them in the inbox on Facebook, they instantly reply to you.
Right.
Some people respond to email. Some people respond to text message. Some people respond to LinkedIn inbox. Some people respond to their social media inboxes.
Yes.
And so understanding that different people speak different digital languages, we need to not be afraid to allow an interpreter, a marketer like ourselves, to come in and translate what they're saying into all of these digital languages.
Yeah.
Because then that gives them more opportunities to reach more people that fit their client profile.
Yeah, I love that, because why not? Like you said earlier, like why not just put it in? And we're not talking about creating different content for all of these platforms. There's lots of different software out there. And I just talked to a firm recently that wasn't even aware of this. So I'm just going to say it because it seems obvious to me and you, but there's lots of software out there where you take one post and it's going to go out to whatever platforms you use. All of the platforms that Dennis was just talking about. So we're not saying like, if you're on 17 platforms, you have to create 17 versions of the same thing. We're not. You've got one thing, you're just going to shoot it out to all the possible outlets where people may be sitting waiting for your message. So let's get back to this idea that kind of ties into the topic, which is the difference between successful and struggling. So you talked a little bit about some of the mistakes in terms of like not having a plan. And what are some of the other things that you see? Because I'm sure you've got some of your clients who are doing really well and their podcast.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what they're doing right, because that's what everybody wants to know. They're looking at the ones that are successful and they're like, why is that not me? That should be me.
Because every attorney, they're the best attorney in the world.
It's not even FOMO. It's that should be me.
Yeah. So I think not giving the proper amount of time to understand that we're way past the age of bought media.
Yeah.
It's like for years, I used to hear attorneys over and over, I remember Yellow Pages. And if I spent $3,000 a month on Yellow Pages, then I just knew I'd get 7 cases every month. It's like,
great.
Yellow Pages don't even, they're like, they literally have dumpsters now for the companies that there's literally like, don't even bother to open that thing, just throw it in.
I don't think my kids would even know what that was if they saw one. It's kind of like a phone with a cord when they go to like their grandparents' house. They're like, how does this even work? What am I doing here?
I remember, and my kids are a little older now, but even just, they're all like 19, 23, 25, just about. But I remember we went to the library.
Yeah.
And there was a payphone there. And my kids came up and they're like, Dad, what is this?
Is this a portal to another land?
I was like, this is a payphone. And they're like, what do you do? And I'm like, well, you put a quarter in it and you can call somebody. And they're like, can I have a quarter? Like we were at the gumball machines, So I was like, so I let them all put a quarter in and call their mom and be like, Mom, I'm calling you on a payphone. And I was just like, wow. The big mistakes attorneys make, number one, they don't give it time. They don't understand that this is earned media. It's not bought media. Now, you can prime the pump. That's the second thing that my successful clients do, is although they understand that we made the podcast and we edited the podcast and we did the intro and outro and we put it on 20 different audio outlets and 3 or 4 video outlets. And now we're posting to 7 different outlets. And, we've got this machine going for them. They need to share to their own personal page. LinkedIn is a perfect example. We can post on their LinkedIn page, but like, I don't even know why LinkedIn has pages. So when we post on your LinkedIn page, share that to your personal page. Because you have 2,000 people following you and you have 57 LinkedIn followers.
Right.
So where do you think you're going to get? So people that aren't afraid to prime the pump, like, even having their own team. I tell my team when I can, I don't make them. I always say, it's your choice. Guys, do what you want. But it would really help the company if you would share this. And so like when one of my new podcasts goes out, I'll see like 12 shares and I'll be like, oh, who's sharing it?
It adds a layer of human interaction. And I think that's what most people are trying to weed through these days when you go to any platform, whatever your platform is of choice, and you land there, you're looking for someone to tell you something that feels like it's a friend or somebody and it feels unique and personal and human. And you can tell right away if this is an AI generated whatever it might be.
Oh, yeah.
And so
we keep a list of words because, my team, I internally, our policy is AI than eyes, because AI does a decent job of building a framework to work off of. But if you just throw that out there, it's obvious, it's shallow, it's not real. So it's like, okay, now put yourself in it, get rid of words like, I put
in
on
today's
Facebook
landscape
here, or this is my favorite, demystifying. Like, who on earth used the word demystifying before a year ago?
No.
Like, or delving into.
Right. And in the beginning, it always starts like in today's world or in today's landscape, in today's something. And it's like, that was AI. And also the overuse of the emojis. Yes. So, I mean, you can tell. We can all tell. The AI, like the ChatGPT version of the AI. Like, let's be clear that AI has been around for years and years. But the version that we're all talking about, which is ChatGPT, is super helpful. But you have to add that human. That's what you're talking about when you're saying prime the pump. And these successful podcasts have a human overlay where they're bringing it to their own social networks personally themselves. What other tips do you have from those successful podcasts that they're doing as opposed to the guys who are struggling?
I would say that they are making a concerted effort to bring a quality shoot
Oh,
because, like, with, for example, you said like have corded like headphones because,
yes.
that's USB. And I even said to you, is it okay if I do what I do?
Yeah.
I've used it enough, but I understand that now. Like, I'm like, man, maybe I should be asking my attorneys because
Yeah.
like they'll get a mic and they'll put it like, 2 tables away from them.
Right.
And we're like, hey, can you bring the mic closer? And they're like, how is this? Is this better? And it's like, no, like, let's find a balance. 6
You
to
just
9
blew out a bunch of
inches.
people's eardrums there.
Sorry.
But no, I think that's a good point to have some standards. And
Yeah.
no, because the first thing that's going to happen if you have crappy audio is everybody just turns it off. They go to the next thing. There's a million other options of something to listen to. When I sit down to listen to something, I've got probably 4 or 5 things queued up that I'm interested and excited to listen to. And if it starts out bad or the sound is horrible, forget it. I'm on to the next thing because I usually use AirPods when I'm listening, and it is right. It feels like it's inside my skull. Forget it.
In the ear, if it's,
Yeah.
imbalanced audio, you have to
Yes.
have a good audio engineer,
Right.
and we've been super fortunate. I mentioned my content director, my post-production finish guy. He
Yeah.
has done a Super Bowl commercial for Doritos.
Nice.
Produced that. He's produced for the NFL, Major League Baseball, Honda, Citigroup, The Economist. Like he's like a Hollywood
what he's doing.
producer. We are providing a service that you in and of yourself cannot provide for yourself at a level that you couldn't provide for yourself.
Totally.
And then, so those guys, and I always give them 4 things. I always say, so it's your lighting, your background, your microphone, and the 4th one isn't coming to mind.
The
3 are
quality of the
obvious.
video.
Oh,
also.
yeah, and
Yeah.
a good video,
Yeah.
video, HD. It needs to be HD. So
Yeah.
if you have those 4 things in place, then you're good to go. Some guys, they want to have like the fake background,
Yeah.
and then they like move around and it's all grainy. And I'm like,
No.
you don't have proper lighting to do that. So either go get
No.
another lighting kit or,
and all of those fake backgrounds. I mean, we were going to spend some time talking about trust, and maybe, we did talk about a little bit about like building your reputation, but I really feel like that degrades the trust, because then you're just sitting there. When I'm watching stuff like that, I'm sitting there thinking, what is in their background that they're trying to hide? I just assume there's something there that's problematic. And I understand, I think the thought process is that I'm trying to simplify and make it the focus more on me, but I don't think the fake backgrounds are where they need to be for people to use it. Like, just figure out a way to, even just a simple wall behind you is better than a fake background.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And all of our best shows definitely done that way.
Right.
And that's what's in the background. And that's why, you got to have
But
something
nobody
behind
wants
you
to
that looks
see
better.
that, like, you've got so many piles of work that you can't get to. Like, that's just not a great first impression. If I'm coming to you as an attorney, I want to see that you are on top of things, that you have time for my issue, and that it's not going to sit in a giant pile and I'm going to wonder how long it is before you get to my thing. So think about all this stuff that they're looking at and taking in, and the impression that you're making, and just keep it clean. Keep it real clean and succinct. So let's talk. We've been jumping around a little bit. We were talking about building trust. Let's spend a minute on that. And then I want to get over to the lead generation, using it as a lead generation thing. So I just want to give a little, hint that that's coming up. But first, let's talk about other things people are using to either build or erode trust, with obviously the goal here is to build.
So let's talk about eroding trust. There's a principle I use that I call cobwebs in the corner, right?
Yeah.
So, and I always like to use this illustration. I went into a chiropractor's office, and I don't know how you think about them. It's not the point, but sometimes you go into a chiropractor's office, it's clean, it's nice, everything's new. You feel like, okay, this person is serious. But I remember I had been recommended for whatever reason to go to this chiropractor, and he'd been around for a while. And I went, and as I sat down and I'm in the waiting room, carpet's kind of dirty, It's kind of an older building.
Yeah.
I look underneath and there's like a Kleenex wadded up underneath one of the things.
Oh,
There's
gross.
like cobwebs up in the corner.
Yeah.
And then I go back to the treatment room and the walls, it's like somebody went with black soled shoes and just ran them along the walls. And it was like, the more I got into this situation,
Yeah.
the more uncomfortable I felt. Now, was it just that one Kleenex that made me feel creepy? Well, maybe a little bit, but it was a combination of small things that built up to erode that trust.
Yes.
So I think that that's one thing, whether it's, whatever it is, if you're meeting somebody someplace and you don't look professional, or you have an old, I don't know, I guess you're using like a briefcase that's still like, do people even use those anymore?
I was thinking the same thing. I don't know when the last time I saw a briefcase was, but it even comes down to stuff like how you or your staff answer the phone. And
absolutely.
Way back in, I think it was the first year of the podcast, we had a secret shopper come on, and she was someone who kind of was like a secret shopper for law firms, and she would call and pretend to be a client and then give the feedback to the law firm owner about how that initial intake. You should not need a secret shopper to know what's going on in terms of like the quality of how your phone calls are being answered. But that matters so much. And I will say, we do a lot of local service ads. And so we can hear those calls get routed through Google. And so Google records them. So we can hear things, similar ideas where we can hear the calls. And I've heard people answering the phone and like stumbling and being like, law office.
Yeah.
They sound like they just woke up. And I mean, it's like, so, and then the caller will ask a question. They're like, yeah, we need to, like, it's just so unprofessional. You should know. And you probably have a gut feeling already about your staff people, if they are on a daily basis on top of it or not. But all of this stuff is slowly, it's like death by a thousand cuts. It's slowly eroding your success. And so, like, if you want to call that trust or your reputation or whatever, at the end of the day, it's your bottom line. So, when you look down the street and think, why is that guy making so much more money than me? Look at the little details. It's not like, there's no big golden ticket. All of these things are either building or eroding trust. Okay, so let's get over to the lead gen part that I promised, and then we're going to go to the book review. Do you have any tips about if they choose that path that we talked about at the beginning, where I want this podcast to be traffic generating, lead generating, a source of revenue for my firm?
Mm-hmm. That's exactly how we structure it. So I'm trying to not sound too salesy, because I'm just like, oh, well, we do it this way for this. So let me frame it in my mind in a way that can be of value to anybody, not just my client. So with that being said, the way that they can is, number one, be consistent. Number two, do not be selfish with your knowledge. Yes. So many attorneys feel like in these podcasts that like their job is to give teaser answers, and people want meat. Like they've come to this. I always say, listen, they've come to you to assuage fears, bring clarity to their situation. And what you want to happen is, and this is, what we hear our attorneys say is like, you want the dynamic to switch, because there's been such a commoditization of the legal industry as a whole. Yeah. The front page of Google, it's got the list, and now it's got, the directories are back up on top. I read the other day, of course, everything changes every day with the algorithm. So if I want to, let's just say a divorce lawyer, since we've been using that, and I type in divorce lawyer Chicago, I'm going to get like 30 on the front page, with 5 of those being directories with hundreds more. Yeah. At this point, all I've done is I've commoditized myself. So the only point of differentiation between me and anybody else on that list now is going to be price. Yeah. And attorneys are frustrated because they're answering their phones. They're paying all this money to be on Google, to be in these directories and Avvo and FindLaw and blah, blah, blah. And the first question people ask them, what are your rates?
Right.
What is your hourly? And it's like, it's put the consumer in the driver's seat. But with podcasting, is specifically question-based podcasting that's offering value. Now, let's say they type in, and really people search 2 ways, right? They search the easy generic way, divorce lawyer Chicago, or they search their situation. They want to understand what's going on. So they might put something like, what happens to non-critical assets in a divorce?
Yeah.
right? And so then this lawyer did a podcast on that. What happens to
Yes.
what happens to a boat, what happens to a vacation home, what
Yeah.
happens to, investments that aren't for retirement or whatever. And so
Yeah.
if they've done that, now all of a sudden the YouTube video pops up. Maybe the page on their website pops up that's got the answers. So they listen to the podcast, they watch the video, they go on the website. And so now what they're able to do is they're calling the attorney, and instead of saying, well, how much is it? They say, how much would it cost me to be able to work with you? And
Yeah.
that's a totally different dynamic shift.
Yep.
So by offering value up front, and this is like trust, thought
Yep.
leadership, authoritative positioning, right?
Right.
But at the same time, like lawyers just don't get this. They think I got to lock up all my intelligence and then get them in front of me. And then when I get them in front of me, I'm going to tell them exactly how smart I am. And then they're going to hire me. And it's like, it doesn't work that way anymore. 82% of people solely look online for their attorney before they ever make a phone call.
Right.
So knowing that, they have to be willing to give away the answers, because the value isn't the answer. The value is the execution.
Yes.
That is what the attorney brings.
Yeah.
I might understand conceptually what's supposed to happen to my vacation home and my boat if I leave my wife, but I don't necessarily know what paperwork and what this and how to do that. And so that is where the attorneys can build that trust, can convert people, can bring in people that will convert higher, that reach their ideal client profile so that they're making more money, spending less time with people that they shouldn't be spending with, and building a practice that's something that they enjoy on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. I feel like the summary that I wanted to add to everything that you said is that if people are calling you and the first question is price-based, you're doing something wrong with your marketing, or you don't have marketing at all. So you're going to basically position your firm as a price-based firm. And this is similar to everything you were saying. If you don't have good marketing, so you're going to be competing on price, and you're going to be just a race to the bottom if your marketing is either failing or you don't have it. And so the difference between great marketing, which includes a great podcast that is part of your entire content plan and drives all of the pieces of content like we've described, the difference is that when I know it's a good client from me and my agency, price is one of the last things we talk about. And they come to me and they've already sold themselves on working with me because they know I have the answers. They know I'm going to take them to a different level. They know they can't do it themselves. And they already come with that knowledge, because one of the green flags for me are, hey, I scheduled this call. Thank you. I know you're busy because I've listened to your podcast. I've read a bunch of articles, and I spent some time on your site, and I've been following you maybe for years, and maybe they get my email newsletter. And then when the time is right, they contact me and they said they've already decided at this point that they want to work with me. And then we're just talking about the details. And the price is not the leading thing, because they're going to convince themselves of whatever price because they've already decided. But I will often find like a luxury hotel and I'm like, oh my gosh, I love this place. I want to stay there. And I find a way to manipulate my budget for that trip to make that hotel work, because it gets into my gut. And the way that it gets into my gut is they have beautiful marketing and beautiful websites. And these luxury hotels, they don't just like have some garbage Squarespace site that they slap up with pictures from their phone. They have spent a lot of thought and strategy. And so when you picture that and you apply that kind of concept to your firm and assume that this is going to have an ROI, then all of a sudden it all starts making sense. Okay. So any other last little things you want to say about that piece of it? Because I know it sounds like sort of the backwards way that a lot of people think about marketing.
I think attorneys can put themselves in a position where they start to look for experts like they perceive themselves to be.
Yes.
A lot of attorneys look for vendors to hire and tell what to do.
Yep.
And when they start hiring and working with experts that they see as partners and as equally as intelligent, but with a different set of intelligence, that's when they can be helped the most. my most difficult clients are the people who come to me, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do this. And I'm like, I mean, it's your
fail.
show.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, we have it this way for a reason. Sorry,
okay.
You know?
Right. Yeah, you did that once thing. It is such a good point, because that is also a red flag for us. And I can weed those types of clients out from the beginning. And we do not work with clients that, over this many years I've been doing this, we do not work with clients who think that they can do it themselves, because then it's like, go do that. And oftentimes when they start asking questions about, hey, I saw this Squarespace thing, why should I not just pay $20, or whatever? I don't even know what Squarespace costs anymore. And then I have a response that I've used so many times that I just, copy and paste, where it's like, please go try that. And then get back to me in 6 months, because we'll have a different conversation. Right now, this conversation is down at the bottom about price. And that's not the conversation that you and I should be having. So you go figure it out. And sometimes they never come back to me, but sometimes they do. And they have totally adjusted their mindset around value. But I can't do that for them. They have to do that themselves. If they're not coming in with value, then
what I say to those same people is, I'm just like, you're absolutely right. And I can file my divorce on LegalZoom.
Exactly.
Or I could hire, I think prepaid legal is only like $30 a month, and then I get a free lawyer. So, and then they're like, well, it doesn't work like that. And I'm like, exactly.
Yes, it does. Yeah, exactly.
So if you understand why LegalZoom doesn't work, then just understand why I'm telling you Squarespace doesn't work.
Exactly.
And then more often than not, they're like, and this is why I love working with attorneys, by the way, is they're like, okay, you're right. I get it. Like, I love, like, if you give them logic and an application directly to what they do, 9 times out of 10, they're like, okay, you're right. Let's do it your way.
Yeah. Okay. I see it.
So that's why I like working with them.
So I want to give a good couple minutes for our book review section, because this is a good one. It's time for the Thought Leaders Library. Remember, our website has a curated collection of all the top book picks from our guests. So Dennis, what is the book that you think everybody should have on their shelf and we should add to the library today?
Malcolm Gladwell has definitely been, he's been around forever.
Forever.
My whole career. And I would say that, like, foundationally, like when I mentor young people in marketing, I have them read Blink and Outliers and Tipping Point, because these are just principle based. It's not about step 1, step 2. It's just basically understanding some core principles of marketing. And probably one of my favorite ones is Blink. The concept being just like, our gut's probably right. Stop overanalyzing. Stop looking for 1,000 reasons. It's like, I always tell people this: there's 1,000 reasons you can say no, but you only need one reason to say yes. And if you focus on that, or there's 1,000 reasons why you can fail, but there's one reason why you can be successful. If you hone in and focus solely on that one thing instead of the 1,000 things that would cause you to fail, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be successful. And I think with Blink, what it taught me was, it taught me to make decisions and trust myself, do the research I need to do, but for the most part, trust my instinct, my gut, and move forward, own it. If I mess it up, then readjust, adapt, and overcome. But that is what I learned from that book. And I think that can apply to business, that can apply to marketing.
Life.
There's so much that's there. Life.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and there's this decision paralysis that people have too. And I will regularly say, especially where I feel like where we see it a lot is in the design process. So when we're starting a website, and especially in the early phases where we're kind of doing like the main initial concepts, once we've got it rolling, it goes smoother. Right. But sending it out to 50 people, including like your cousin and the neighbor down the street, and getting all these cooks in the kitchen, does not help. It does not add to your ease of decision. And like sitting and thinking about it and iterating does not help. It does not create a better end result ever. The best projects we have ever done are fast, quick decisions, gut reactions, and they're always tied to the initial strategy and the goals and everything, because it's all tightly wound and still something everybody's thinking about, as opposed to like the longer things go on, the farther they get away from all those ideas. So, adding more time and splitting the hairs does not, it makes it worse. Yeah. So Blink.
Blink, exactly.
Yeah. Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. He is one of my all-time favorite authors. And the last thing I just wanted to add about him too is that his mother was an English teacher, so he writes really well. As opposed to a lot of these business books where they're kind of dry and not well, his are very storytelling, and you fly through the books. It's so well written. So Blink is amazing, but like some of the other ones you mentioned, Outliers and Tipping Point, all three of those are probably my favorites. Like they're all so good. So when you
like
fly
Tipping
through
Point, I've always just told myself, like, if I could just have 1 million clients, my life is done. Because that's like, right, that's sort of the premise of the book, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, just get to 1 million. And it's like, if I just had 1 million clients, my life would be so easy. Yeah. So, like, that's,
there you go.
I mean, I don't think I'll ever have 1 million in my agency. Maybe
that
I'll have
like
a
my worst
consumer-based
nightmare.
product. Yeah.
Right.
That'd be a very systems-based agency.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah. So Dennis, when people are done listening to this episode, what should be the first thing that they think about doing after they have left me a review?
Leave me one? I don't know.
Yeah, no. But in seriousness, when it comes to podcasting and thinking about if you have a podcast or are thinking about having a podcast, what's the first thing they should think about doing in terms of everything we've been talking about?
I think it goes to the first thing I said, which is you need to start from where you want to go or who you want to reach and work backwards from there to where you are. Yes. And make sure that the path that you're on is to reach those people. And if it's not, pivot.
Adjust. Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Don't hold some emotional attachment to a path that's not working. I see that all the time too. It's like, oh, but so-and-so told me, like, no, move on. Look at the numbers. Like, don't be emotional about this. This is business. And, find something that does work, because that's the other thing is people end up in a position where they just feel like nothing works and all marketers are liars and all of that, and it's like, well,
oh, yeah.
No.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, and, in fairness, I've taken on so many clients where they have come from a place or a different, agency or company or whatever that is not doing them any favors. And so like there is some, exactly. Awesome. Dennis Meador is the CEO of Legal Podcast Network. Thank you so much for being here. This is a great episode.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it very much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Counsel Cast podcast. Be sure to visit our website at counsel-cast.com for the resources mentioned on the episode and to give us your feedback. If you enjoyed this episode, I would appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on Apple and subscribe to your favorite podcast platform. See you on the next one.